Let's watch this video clip and do the activity. What is an interview? One of the more common methods of data collection in education and the social sciences is the use of interviews. Interviews can be conducted with individuals, with pairs, or with groups. They can be short and focused. They can be long, intense dialogues involving multiple sessions. Interviews can be conducted via telephones or via the internet using something like Skype, or they could even be conducted via a series of emails. There are key concepts that they all have in common. Firstly, we need to remember that the aim of an interview is to understand the issue or topic from the participant's point of view. Therefore, interviews should allow participants to reply using their own words and ideas without being constrained by the choice of words or categories offered by researchers. Secondly, researchers choose interviewing as a method to collect in-depth information. Interviews allow participants to go beyond the single word or short paragraph type answers. They allow the participants to provide as much information about the topic and in as much detail as desired. Thirdly, interviews allow researchers to probe and to follow up ideas. Researchers can ask their participants to expand on their answer, ask them why they answered the way they did. Researchers often describe the interview as a conversation between the researcher and those people being researched, a dialogue in which the participants respond to the questions and then the researcher responds to the participants. We tend to think of three types of interviews. They can be structured, semi-structured, and unstructured, although in reality, this is very continuum rather than discrete categories or types. The structured interview is when you ask the same set of questions to all your participants. The question content and the order of the questions is specified in advance, and the responses are usually short. Any variation from these questions during the interview is discouraged. This approach facilitates faster interviews that can be easily analyzed and compared. You usually choose to use a structured approach when there is desire to compare information from each interview or groups of interviewees. Basically, you are more likely to adopt a semi-structured approach when you need to be able to justify each of your questions in education research. In this style of interviewing, you create a list of very specific topics and issues to be covered. We call this the interview guide. However, you decide the order and wording of the questions during the course of the interview. Furthermore, you may follow up interesting responses not included in the guide. This approach is intended to ensure that the same general areas of information are collected from each participant, but still allow a degree of freedom and adaptability in getting the information from your participants. The unstructured or conversational interview is used in research where there is very little known about a topic or issue. In one sense, the research is creating theory or knowledge about that topic. There is usually no predetermination of questions, and they are asked as they arise. This style relies heavily on the interviewing skill of the researcher to keep the interview going. These interviews are often divided into two parts. The first part, you ask a single initial question designed to get the participant talking about their experiences. In the second part of the interview, You will return to each of the experiences in turn and ask them to elaborate on it. Seek tips for designing a semi-structured interview guide. You want to design a guide for your semi-structured interview? I will show you how to develop the right questions and ask them in the right order so you can get the information you need every time. A semi-structured is a verbal exchange where one person, the interviewer, elicits information respectfully from another person, the interviewee or respondent, through a series of questions. It should feel like a good conversation. First, remember the questions you develop rely very heavily on your knowledge of the topic. If you are researching a topic that you know well, for example, if you are a nurse researching patients' experiences of taking medication, then you are in a good place. Whether you know something or nothing at all about the topic, always read the literature before developing your guide. Second, once you have read the literature and have a good grasp of the topic, return to your research question and ask yourself, what information do I want to get from the semi-structured interview? Make a list of everything you want to find out using the semi-structured tool. Include list examples for whiteboard text. Third, make sure that each item on the list only consists of one idea. Questions asking about more than one thing can be unclear, confusing, and introduce bias. Now you can start drafting your questions. Fourth, remember in qualitative research, our aim is to get the respondent's perspective. So we must use open questions and never use leading questions. For example, tell me about experience of coming to this school today. You like coming to this school, don't you? Now, let's get to the structure of the guide. The first set of questions in your research guide must be broad questions that put the interviewee at ease and encourage them to give you their perspective. For example, tell me about experience of coming to this school. Fifth, the middle section is where you pursue ideas in more depth and where you get the answers to your specific research questions. The interviewee is now at ease, feeling valued because you have listened to them. Now you may ask more detailed questions and use prompts to build on the respondent's previous answers. For example, you mentioned that you like coming to school because your teachers are very nice. What sort of things does your teacher do that makes you say they are nice? Sixth, in the concluding section, here you can seek clarification for anything that is still unclear and also that take into account any theories you may be using in your research. For example, research has shown that boys learn differently from girls. In your school, how do your teachers meet the different learning needs of boys and girls?